Hi, good afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, coming to you from Evans Hall at the Yale School of Management. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We're looking forward to talking to you today about the MBA for executives, about Yale SOM, about Yale, and diving deeper into the curriculum today because I'm lucky enough to be joined by our Deputy Dean, David Bach. So let me start with an introduction of myself. My name is Joanne Legler, and I'm the Director of Admissions for the MBA for Executives here at the Yale School of Management. And I'd love to introduce my colleague, David Bach.
Hi, I'm David Bach. I'm Deputy Dean. I'm on the faculty here at the School of Management. Been here for 6 years, and during that time I've been very fortunate to work with Joanne and our entire team on the MBA for Executives program, which is something that we're particularly proud of. A program that is distinctive, that is focused on our unique mission to educate leaders for business and society, and that is just going from strength to strength. And we're excited to engage in conversation about the program and answer many of the questions that we hope you'll post.
And you can do that using the chat feature. We've already posed a question to you this afternoon to talk a little bit about your work and some of the challenges or issues that may come up for you either on a regular basis or maybe just in the last couple of days. But if you have questions beyond that about the program or about admissions, I encourage you to use the chat feature. We'll get to as many of your questions at the end of our session as we can. So today's program format is a little bit different. We intend to be a little bit more casual, a little bit more Q&A, so that you can get a little bit of information about not only the program, but then get really the faculty perspective and really dive into the unique features of our program as it relates to the curriculum. So let's dive in, David, and talk a little bit about the mission of the institution, and that'll help frame our discussion, I think, because everything we do, it really goes back to the mission of Yale and the Yale School of Management. And our mission, as you can see from what you're seeing on your screen, is to educate leaders for business and society. And that's something that is a founding mission. So it really drives everything we do on a daily basis. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, as some of you may know, Yale actually only started this endeavor having a business or a management school in the 1970s. The first class didn't graduate until 1978. This is decades after many of our peer universities ventured into this space. And the reason really was that there was a sense that in order for Yale to do something in this space, it had to be unique, it had to be distinctive. So we were founded as a school of management, not a school of business. For many years, the degree was actually called a Master of Public and Private Management, not an MBA. And the mission, as you said, from the beginning has been leaders for business and society. And the important words really are the two short ones. It's for, there's a purpose to what we do, and it's about and. It's the connections between business and society. So it's not people who either work in business or they work for civil society, but it's people who understand that no matter where they sit, they have a responsibility to society, and that business is an integral part of our social fabric.
I think it really even drives what we do as staff and as faculty, as well as for our students. And we think oftentimes about, okay, well, what am I thinking about and doing today that's going to impact people around me? Maybe it's my office, maybe it's my department, maybe it's the entire school. So I think the mission is really infused for everybody and not just necessarily our students, but it absolutely drives everything we do on a daily basis and then kind of more regularly for our students as they enter their places of work too. And it's definitely worth talking about Yale to kind of get us started here as well. Yale is our parent university. Yale is our home, and Yale very much drives everything that we do because we absolutely are lucky enough to be at this world-class institution where we're really able to draw on all of the resources, privileges, and rights that come along with being a student, being an alum of Yale University, and of course, Yale is quite old. I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of funny to talk about how old Yale is and have our Europeans go, well, that's adorable, because really for the U.S., of course, this is kind of young, but for the U.S., it's actually quite old, and we really draw upon the legacy and the tradition that comes along with being at this very storied institution. And we're able to really utilize staff, faculty, classes, and for some fun stuff as well. So Yale is quite old, and David, you're an alum of Yale, so talk a little bit about how the infusion of Yale and its historic nature impacts us here at the School of Management for the MBA for Executives specifically. What does that mean for us?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the School of Management is really young, less than 40 years old, and or about 40 years old. Our founding dean is alive and well, and comes to board meetings, and is still very much around, and so it's a young, dynamic school of management in a old, venerable university, right, from 1701, third oldest university in the U.S. And what we work towards is ensuring that every student who comes to the School of Management, who comes to the MBA for Executives, is first and foremost a Yale student. It's about being part of Yale, and you see that in the way we approach things. We we see our responsibility, our role as educating leaders, people who can transform societies and move them forward. We are steeped in scholarship. Nothing that gets taught at the School of Management isn't backed up by research. A lot of the research our faculty have done themselves. We're also a convening place. People like to come to Yale. They come to New Haven. We have a lot of people coming through. And the last thing I think I'd say is that, of course, Yale is best known for the liberal arts that drew me to Yale University. I mean, I grew up in Germany, and I couldn't have studied liberal arts in Germany. You pick one subject, and Yale offered this incredible a variety of things that you could do, the best traditions, this liberal arts education. And to the extent that a School of Management can replicate that, I think we've done that here. So we bring in, as you say, faculty from around the university. We draw on distinctive perspectives. We'll talk a little bit later on about our curriculum and perspective taking and how important that is. So this sort of liberal arts ethos, there's multiple perspectives, multiple people, diversity, enriching one another, that I think Yale is best known for is very much palpable here at the School of Management as well.
I agree. I think I've been lucky enough to see speakers, former presidents. It's just been remarkable to be a staff member here and never know what you're going to be able to be a part of and be able to hear from. And so it's really been a pleasure to work here, and you get all these cool advantages as a staff member as well.
So on that notion of bragging, if you'll just forgive me, I'll share an anecdote. We're sitting here in the Betts classroom, which is room 2420, and the last time I was in this room was about 2 weeks ago when Bill Nordhaus, professor of economics, won a Nobel Prize, and the press conference took place right here at the School of Management. Of course, he's best known for the work that he's done on climate change and how to think about climate change from an economics perspective, right? And so that's the kind of deep scholarship that is focused on addressing real issues that Yale is best known for. And it took place right here. And that wasn't even the only event in the building that day. Later in that afternoon, we had a conversation between John Kerry and Tom Friedman, just downstairs in the auditorium. That doesn't happen every day, but it happens more often than you think. And it's an exciting place to be for that reason.
And it happens at Yale. And that's really, I think, what is the best of both worlds. We have this really historic university, but the School of Management, as you mentioned, is so new. And I think what that allows us to do is bring scholarship here, bring speakers here, bring a world-class student body here as well. And as you're seeing from the photo, this is the one building I think that really stands out on campus. We're very lucky to be in this very modern, very transparent building that really reflects our values about how we think about business. But I think also having a new building, being part of a new program as well, allows us to kind of cut the ties when needed from tradition or being steeped in old ways of thinking about things. It allows us to be innovative. It allows us to be very forward-thinking. And I think even just having a building that is forward-thinking and modern really reflects how we're able to think about things that not only allow us to take the best of tradition, but move it forward as well. Is that something that you'd agree with in terms of how we think about business, thinking forward?
Completely. So it's about modern, it's about innovative, and it's about transparent. I mean, Lord Foster, Norman Foster is the architect for the building. When he talks about why he designed the building the way he did, and there's a video available on YouTube that I'm sure you can find if you're interested. It's a fascinating conversation about architecture and how it reflects the values of an institution, but it's all about transparency, it's about connectivity, it's a place where people encounter one another, it's a place for shared learning and conversation, and you're absolutely right, it is one of the very few unapologetically modern and sort of 21st century buildings on an otherwise pretty antique-looking campus.
We're lucky to be here every day, I have to say. It's a pleasure to come to work every day. Well, speaking of our location, I think it's worth talking about kind of where we're located for those of you that maybe don't know the Northeast very well. Just a quick map here that gets you in the mindset of where we might be located in relation to the rest of the Northeast of the U.S. So really strategically located right in between New York City, of course, course, an enormous bustling city, and a place like Boston. There's an Amtrak train, there's a commuter train to get you into New York on a regular basis. Our students are coming really from all over the place, and that plane is there in part to remind you that even if you are a little further away than the Northeast Corridor, the MBA for Executives is absolutely accessible for you. We have airports here in New Haven. We've got airports in places like New York, Hartford, Boston, and our students really do make the trek to get here because they believe in the value of our program, and having this really ideal location where students can come from all over the world brings about a diversity in our MBA for Executive programs that I think really is an enormous advantage for students, because you're not just learning from people who are kind of thinking about the things that you're thinking about in the way that your region or your location might dictate, but instead it allows us to be really diverse in a different kind of a way. And I think allowing students to come from all over the place really enriches the program.
And it changes the dynamics in the program. I mean, I have to admit, I joined the School of Management 6 years ago and was tasked with thinking about how to move this program forward. And one of the things that we looked at is, does it actually make sense to run an executive program on weekends in New Haven? Should we have it instead in New York City? A lot of our students come from New York, and New York, of course, is connected to the entire world. And what we found, talking to students, talking to alums, but also speaking to prospective students, was people like coming to New Haven. There's something about sort of getting on the train if you're in New York City or anywhere really, and coming out to New Haven and being on this campus, and not sort of having the temptation to sort of dive into city life, but spending a little bit of time on this sort of somewhat quiet, quaint. There's always things to do, but sort of overall sort of somewhat quiet place that lends itself to conversations, to reflection, to learning, and then going back to Boston, to New York, to Washington, D.C., to Chicago, to wherever our students go. So it does really shape the character, I think, of the program and the learning.
Yeah, I think so too. And so speaking of that in the program, what does this sort of mean practically? What kind of time are you going to spend in the MBA for Executives program? And so this is an opportunity to talk a little bit about, on a practical level, when are we going to see you here on campus? So our program is 22 months. We meet every other Friday and Saturday. And we also include 4 in-residence weeks, and that's an opportunity for you to come and spend some time on campus when you first start the program. So you'll spend 2 weeks with us in year 1. You'll come back and spend another week with us just prior to the start of year 2, and then we'll do Global Network Week instead. So from a practical perspective, it's essentially about 52 days out of the office. So those of you that are thinking about starting to approach your employer or your teammates about maybe doing the MBA for Executives, this gives you a really good sense of what that means on a sort of a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. You'll be out of the office every other Friday for 22 months, and you'll be spending some time with us on Saturday as well. A sample class weekend might also be a little bit helpful for you to better understand, again, practically what does this mean, and what can I be expecting. So you'll be with us for class. We'll, of course, feed you. We feed you breakfast, too. You'll sit in on a colloquium. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. Another class, we'll then invite you to join us on a cross-campus event, which will give you that sense of being part of the Yale community. On Saturday, we start bright and early. You'll start with us at 8 a.m. You'll have a lunch break. You'll come back into class and then have the option to stick around for an optional workshop. Those are very popular. They sort of sell out pretty quickly with our students, but it's a really cool opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about what else Yale has to offer. We bring in coaches, teachers, professors from all over the university. So from a practical perspective, David,
when you said sell out, you meant like they fill up really quickly.
Fill up fast.
All of this is part of the program, obviously, right? So this is sort of what what we structure the program around. But students frequently they sometimes stay until Sunday. They come a day early. There's an event on campus that they want to take advantage of. The place is yours during the entire time that you're enrolled in it, and of course beyond.
Yeah. And from a sort of practical perspective, David, too, what does it mean to be here every other weekend? Why did we structure the program that way? Why does it work well for an MBA for Executives program? Oftentimes we have students who say, gosh, I wish you had programs, modularly, could I just come once a month? Could I come during the day? I wish, I'm here in New Haven, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, or elsewhere on staff. I'd love to be able to come on a Tuesday at, 12 o'clock. Talk a little bit about why we've structured the program the way we have.
So there's a lot of diversity in programs. Some of you may be considering multiple executive MBA programs, and it's useful to look carefully not just at how the program is designed, but how it compares to the full-time MBA that the school offers. And I was going to say how it compares to the full-time MBA equivalent, but that would be misleading because in many instances it's not necessarily equivalent. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can design programs however you want, but we're among a very small number of schools that have deliberately decided to keep our MBA for executives as close to the full-time MBA as possible. And that's because there's only one MBA degree at Yale. It's the Master of Business Administration. Whether you earn it by quitting a job, moving to New Haven and taking classes Monday through Thursday, or whether you earn it by keeping your job and coming here every other Friday and Saturday is irrelevant in terms of the degree that you earn. And so we teach the same curriculum. We'll talk about the curriculum more in a moment. Essentially the same contact hours, the same faculty, the same expectations, the same credit requirement. And we've just found that this very rigorous, intensive Yale curriculum is best taught in this format. If we had, you know, every 6 weeks we do a week, you sort of have this stop and go learning. It works for some programs. We feel that it doesn't work well for us. What works well is, you know, students prepare. They come here, 2 days of intense classes. Then they have 12 days to apply what they have learned, test it out at work, gather feedback, and prepare for the next round of sessions. Having that off weekend in between is good to catch up on work and to catch up on class time, but also to catch up with family and friends. And so that rhythm is good because every 2 weeks means you hear sufficiently often that there's continuous learning, but you have a frequent enough sort of break in the action and being back at work that hopefully there you don't, I don't know, fall too far behind, or you can still at least, you know, meet most of your responsibilities.
And the option to apply your learning right away too. I mean, I think it's a huge advantage. Is, you know, students tell us all the time, what I learned on Saturday, I applied at work on Monday. So I think the option to think about how this is furthering your own development and career in the moment is really important.
And for us as faculty, it's a lot of fun because not only do people apply on Monday what they learned on Saturday, but they come back 10 days later on Friday and say, by the way, I tried that and it didn't work. Yeah. Or this is what I heard, or this was the resistance, or it did work, and so we have this continuous sort of feedback and feed forward loop between, you know, study on campus, application at work, and back to campus and sharing and engaging.
Well, on that note too, let's move and talk a little bit about the actual curriculum overview and what you're going to get out of that first year, that second year. And we're going to dive most deeply, I think, into the core curriculum next. But it's worth taking a look to see what you can expect from year 1 and year 2, what the overview is and what you're going to get in both years, including leadership development, area of focus, related colloquia speakers. In year 1, you will be, as David mentioned, taking that deep core curriculum, just like our full-time students do. And then how the second year really differs in terms of delving into advanced management classes, your area of focus, and then of course our self-directed study. But I think it's worth taking some time to talk about our very unique integrated core curriculum. And so we'll dive into that next because I think this is worth spending some time on. We'll see some stuff sort of fly in here. But talking about the learning journey first. But again, where the integrated core curriculum comes in. It comes in after that orientation and after that in residence, and we dive right in essentially. So and why we've chosen to sort of structure the curriculum this way as well from stakeholder perspectives and what these individual classes are. So David, would you do a walkthrough of our curriculum and why it's important, why it's unique, and how it really does differ from other programs folks are looking at?
Yeah, it does. And so, you know, before I said if you're looking at different programs, one of the things to look at is, you know, where it takes place, how it's structured, how close it is to the full-time equivalent. But one of the issues that, you know, really will strike you as you do a comparison is that our curriculum looks very different from that of other top business schools. You know, most MBA curricula are structured around disciplines, you know, marketing, finance, accounting, human resources, strategy, and ours isn't. Ours is structured around stakeholder perspectives, and the reason for that is that most problems don't present themselves as functional problems. You know, they aren't marketing problems, they aren't accounting problems, they aren't finance problems. What they tend to be are problems that emanate from issues that you might have around innovation, or you might have you're facing a competitive challenge, or you have to think about understanding your customer better, or there's something about the way the organization functions, how you make things that is broken or could be optimized, and that's what operations engine is. And so to understand this a little bit better, it's sort of valuable to go back to why other curricula are set up that way, and how do we decide to innovate on that. You talk to anybody in the business world or in the nonprofit world or in the public sector, they will tell you that they no longer have a marketing department, an HR department, a finance department, an operations department. Many organizations had those 40 years ago, but they're organized completely differently today. But what hasn't changed as much is PhD training, doctoral training in the area of management. And so people graduate with PhDs in accounting and finance and marketing and operations. And that, quite honestly, is the reason why most business schools continue to teach along functional lines. So here at Yale SOM, we are incredibly fortunate that we have a student-faculty ratio of 9-to-1, 9 students for every faculty member. That's a lot lower than our peer schools. And that enabled the faculty to innovate and to craft a curriculum around stakeholder perspectives. Right. And to frequently have multiple faculty members in the room where they take turns, teaching a core course. And so we look at problems from the perspective of a customer, of a competitor, of an employee, of an innovator, of an investor. And what that does not only is more holistic learning, more integrated learning, but it also enables us to prepare students for leadership roles across all different sectors. Yeah. Because even the smallest of enterprises, an entrepreneurial startup, it doesn't have an accounting department and a marketing department and an HR department, but it has customers, or it's looking for customers. It probably has competitors, it has investors, it has employees. The same is true for a hospital. The same is true for a nonprofit, even if we think of customers slightly differently in those settings. And so this is a curriculum that we believe, and we have a lot of evidence for, leads to much better holistic learning, and it lends itself to preparing people for all kinds of roles. So it's a unique and distinctive feature of a Yale MBA program.
So we asked the audience earlier today, tell us about a problem you're sort of wrestling with or struggling with, and a couple of you have decided to let us into a peek into your world and kind of some of the things that you're struggling with. So we have one student who talked about working on finding ways to quickly train and upskill, I love that word, our newer clinical hires in order to quickly make an impact on the business and meet the needs of our customers. So somebody who's struggling with a specific instance like this, how does the core curriculum help somebody like this?
Yeah, so, again, if you approach this from a traditional perspective, you're thinking, what, is that an HR issue? But does training happen within human resources? Or, and then how do I think about customers in that way? I guess our marketing function sort of tells us something, or our sales team. Right. Again, that's not really how a lot of organizations are organized. What this is really is, I need to have an employee perspective. I need to understand my employees, my colleagues, how they work, what motivates them, how I train them. And then I have to have a customer perspective. I need to deeply understand my customers and bring these two things together. And you have there on your screen that white circle in the middle called the executive. That's the capstone course that locks together, if you will, the entire core curriculum, where we then bring multiple stakeholder perspectives together. And we'll look at, how do you actually solve problems like this? How do you sort of put on your employee perspective and your customer perspective? Or how do you look at an issue from an innovator perspective and from an operations perspective? How do you make a new product work? Or how do you look at it from an investor perspective and a competitor perspective? And so we do a lot of this sort of perspective switching and integration, particularly in this course at the end called the executive.
Absolutely, thanks. Well, this isn't all that we have in terms to offer in terms of the curriculum. In fact, the curriculum is really taking the best of what we have to offer here. So the integrated core curriculum is going to be a lot about what you are kind of dealing with on a daily basis and setting you up for success in that way. And then we kind of move forward from there. And one of the unique pieces and features of our curriculum is that we're going to sort of force you into this awesome global opportunity, which I don't think you're going to get in every executive MBA program. So let's talk for a minute about the Global Network, and specifically about Global Network Week. And the Global Network was something that you are deeply familiar with, and you essentially kind of helped to start when you arrived here at Yale SOM. So what is the Global Network for Advanced Management? Why does it exist, and what's our place in it?
Yeah, so the Global Network is a real institutional innovation in management education. It was founded here at Yale 6.5 years ago by 20 top business schools. It's now grown to have 30 members. And the easiest way to think about it is, Star Alliance or One World or SkyTeam for business schools. Now, if you're a frequent traveler, and when I say Star Alliance, you think of lost luggage, then sort of get the metaphor out of your head as quickly as possible. But the idea basically is that all top business schools are serving global stakeholders, participants, employers, faculty who have a global perspective, but we're all anchored on one place. We're in New Haven, Connecticut. We don't have 25 campuses around the world that plug us into the conversations there. And so the network brings these resources into our reach. And so just as we are at Yale School of Management deeply connected with the rest of Yale and leverage Yale, we're deeply connected globally through these other 27 schools. And they include not just the top business schools in Hong Kong and Singapore and Paris and in London, but they include the best business school in Nigeria, and the best business school in Kenya, and the best business school in Brazil, and in Turkey, and Indonesia, and the Philippines. And we can connect students with one another, connect faculty to students, connect alumni to one another, connect thought leaders, and it makes for a really distinctive experience. One of the things that the Global Network enables is what you referenced, Global Network Weeks, which are, of course, a core feature now of our MBA for Executive offering.
Which is a really, I think, unique feature of the program. And I was actually just meeting this morning with our Director of Global Programs and Initiatives, and she mentioned that one of our newest programs, Strathmore University in Kenya, is going to be joining EMBA Global Network Week this year. So we're really excited about that. So I will say this particular animation is now outdated because we're able to connect with a lot more programs moving forward. I think we're going to be up to about a dozen, if not more than that, for next year's or this coming year's Global Network Week, which we're super excited about. So the opportunity for EMBA students to globalize this opportunity, I think is really meaningful, and I don't think it's something you'll find everywhere.
And it's different because, there are a lot of programs that will take a group of students on a trip, right? And it's great to go on a trip with your classmates and peers, but as you're exploring and experiencing a new place, you turn to the people around you. And if they're only the people you've already been studying with, then your perspective is somewhat limited. What Global Network Week does is basically, it's just very simple to explain. We all take our academic calendar, we pick one week, we sync it up, and we say, during that week, let's not have regular classes. Let's each offer 1 week-long course on a topic that we know more about than anybody else. And let's invite students from these different schools, executive MBA students, to our campuses to participate. So during that week, we will host here at Yale probably somewhere around 60 or 70 students from the other schools. But our students in exchange get to travel to any of these places. So you can go to Berlin and study innovation in medium-sized enterprises in Germany, or you can go to Ireland and take a look at the future of the food industry. Or you can look at sustainable tourism at the Asian Institute of Management in the Philippines. Berkeley Haas, you might think, would be just about tech and .com. It actually turns out that their week is focused on the obstacles women face in the workforce and how we can promote diversity and inclusion, particularly from a gender perspective. And so it's taking a course at another Global Network school that supplements your study. And the cool thing is that at Berkeley, in that module, you'll meet students from Spain, from Ghana, from Germany, from Ireland, from the Philippines, who are similarly drawn to this issue. And that then leads to networking around that shared interest globally that is really, really valuable and a true differentiator.
I agree, and our students come back just having been so positively impacted by that 1 week, really open their eyes to thinking about themselves being, again, leaders for business and society and taking that to the global level. So part of year 2 will allow you to dive into our advanced management classes. Again, I think this is a pretty unique feature of our program as well. You'll see you have a little bit of choice here, but we've really curated a list of classes that we think as future leaders in an MBA program you need to learn and make sure that you leave here feeling like you've gotten that deep dive into areas that are going to help you advance your business, advance your career. So David, why do we have this? Why does advanced management make the most sense as the next step and the dive into year 2?
So the integrated core curriculum in year 1 gives you an incredibly solid, robust foundation of management. But there's certainly areas where a deep dive makes sense. And so these are some of them. Customer is a great introduction to how we think about customers. Marketing strategy is about, if I have a new product or a new service that I want to launch, how do I go from start to finish? How do I do my research? How do I put together a strategy? How do I execute it? Investor and sourcing and managing funds are really, really solid introductions to finance. But corporate finance there's a lot that you can learn about how you finance an enterprise, sort of the advanced stages of that. Mm-hmm. And so these courses, they supplement and enable participants to go deeper in some of the areas that are truly sort of at the frontier of management thinking.
Excellent. And I think it's worth spending a good deal of time on one of the most unique features of the program, the MBA for Executives, is the fact that we've chosen to structure our program that allows students an even deeper dive into one of 3 areas of focus. And you may know a little bit about this already, and if you don't, this is the perfect introduction for you to understand, well, where do I sit and what do I want to learn? And so what are our areas of focus, and why did we choose to sort of create the program this way?
So this is, we're talking about all the different ways in which the Yale MBA for Executives is distinct, and you're right, this is perhaps sort of the most obvious one, mm-hmm. right? That to be a leader for business and society, to graduate from this program, which is designed for mid-career professionals, people who are already in positions of significant responsibility and who will soon be leading organizations if they're not already leading them. We want you to have general management fundamentals. We want you to have strong leadership skills, but we also want you to really master a domain at the nexus of business and society. And so in keeping with the mission, in keeping with our efforts to integrate with the rest of Yale, there are 3 focus areas.
Yeah, let's start with the first one.
They are, let me just mention them very quickly, asset management, healthcare, and sustainability, and all 3 of them are at the nexus of business and society. So let me sort of say what they're not. They're not mm-hmm. real estate, they're not marketing, they're not accounting, they're not functional specializations. They are, you got to get some exposure to a place where business and society connects. So what better slide to back this up than Tim Geithner, former Treasury Secretary, New York Fed Chair, who's engaging with students in a conversation here in the asset management track. And asset management is really about how do we invest for the long run. How do we fund the things that we cherish in society? We cherish education, we cherish museums, we cherish charitable foundations, we cherish retirement and dignity, and how do you use the tools of finance to enable this? This isn't a finance specialization, it's an asset management specialization. And many of you probably know that Yale is known for its endowment model and endowment approach, and a lot of that sort of long-term investing has found its way into this curriculum, which was designed and is being led by Professor Will Gutzman, one of our most distinguished finance faculty members. I think he has 4 or 5 different degrees from Yale. True Renaissance man. That tie he's wearing on that picture, he designed himself because he runs a little business on the side, but he's an extraordinarily thoughtful leader on asset management and has put together a curriculum that will expose participants to all the different elements of portfolio management and investing, but also infuse it with behavioral perspectives, an appreciation for how you fund and invest in entrepreneurial ventures, how the global financial system is changing. That's, of course, being taught by our colleague Jeff Garten, former dean of the school, former Lehman executive, and also former Undersecretary of Commerce in the Clinton administration. So somebody who's worked in education, in government, and business, and he takes students on a great ride when it comes to contemplating the future of finance.
Excellent. So we have 2 other areas of focus. One of them is healthcare, and this is a great photo of one breakout session of our student-run healthcare conference, which is a great collaboration between the schools of management, medicine, nursing, public health. It's just a way to introduce you to the idea that healthcare is definitely at the nexus of business and society, and interestingly, was really where the MBA for Executives started. So talk a little bit about the healthcare focus area and really why we chose that to begin with.
Yeah, so the MBA for Executives started, as you say, in 2005 with a collaboration between faculty in the School of Medicine and the School of Management. And the insight was that physicians and other clinicians in particular are increasingly called on to lead large organizations, departments, hospitals, and so on. And nothing in the training of becoming a physician really prepares you for leading a large organization. And that's where it started. How do we train especially clinicians to lead organizations? But of course, you can't do that by only having a conversation with clinicians. So from the very beginning, we pulled into that conversation leaders in insurance, in pharma, in medical devices, in health IT, in the nonprofit sector and the policy space, informing the healthcare conversation. And so that initial focus has really been the model, the blueprint, if you will, for what we've done in asset management and sustainability. And so this is the focus area that has existed the longest, led by Professor Howie Foreman, who is a practicing radiologist, who also has appointments in the School of Public Health and the Department of Economics, of course, here at the School of Management. And it's really about how do we innovate and lead in the healthcare space in the context of a sort of changing and challenging policy environment, rapid technological change, and the curriculum that he's put together, drawing again on faculty in the School of Medicine and Public Health in addition to management is just outstanding. And the program has graduated, healthcare leaders, all around the country and beyond since it launched. 13 years ago.
And we have such a variety of folks coming into the healthcare space, from nursing, we have dentists, we have midwives in the program this year, and it's kind of exciting. One of the, speaking of exciting, really cool things that we've been able to accomplish this year is the Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. And we're thrilled to be able to offer this. If you haven't seen it already, we did a terrific webinar with our 2 faculty directors of the program, including Howie, about a week ago. That's on our website right now. What is this about, and what are we looking for in our applicants?
So this is about a problem and the ability to contribute to a solution. The problem is that despite the fact that the U.S. spends more in healthcare than any other country in sort of absolute terms as well as a percentage of GDP, there are shocking disparities in outcomes, particularly minorities, socioeconomically vulnerable populations, and others consistently do not have access to health care the way they ought to and don't show the same kind of healthcare outcomes. The Commonwealth Fund has long been focusing on that and has been training leaders to tackle these challenges, but primarily by focusing their attention on the role of policy. And we made a pitch to them that another way of accomplishing some of these goals is to take leaders who are already passionate about minority health and supporting access to healthcare for vulnerable populations who don't have a management background, and give them that management toolkit so they can lead organization practices, hospitals, foundations, engage in policy and so on. And so thanks to their funding, we're able to offer full scholarships to probably 3 fellows a year who'll take the MBA for executives with the focus on healthcare and have some supplemental programming and networks and resources to make them leaders not just in healthcare, but primarily leaders in minority health.
We're looking forward to seeing the applications for that. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to go ahead and email us directly. Our final area of focus is sustainability. We start with this slide in particular because this is the home of the Forestry and Environmental Studies School here at the Yale University, just across the street from the School of Management. This particular building is incredibly sustainable in and of itself. It is LEED Gold certified, I think, or maybe even exceeds those particular dimensions. So, and we have a brand new faculty director for this program in the form of Professor Todd Court. So talk to us a little bit about sustainability. I think this is the one where people feel like, wow, I think everybody could really fit into this space, but the passion for issues of sustainability has to be there, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, the IPCC report that just came out a couple of weeks ago, it is so evident that time is running out to really make drastic changes in the way we make things, consume things, how we live, how we work. And we're lucky here at Yale to have amazing faculty, not just at the School of Management, but as you said, particularly at the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, who understand the environmental science, who understand the policy, and who then connect it back up with management. And so, the sustainability curriculum, which is led by Todd Court, who's a former consultant, who's worked with companies and building systems, measurement systems, and metrics for managing sustainability has put together this curriculum. And it's really a how-to toolkit about how do I make operations more sustainable, how do I innovate and create products and services that reduce the environmental footprint that our operations have, but also to make what business does more socially sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So we did have a question that came through in our chat today, is how important is it to know what you want to do, and how important is it to choose an area of focus? And from an admissions perspective, we'll sort of force you to make that choice as an applicant into the program. We encourage you to look pretty deeply at the curriculum itself, the courses that are taught, to make sure. I think it's going to be pretty obvious for some students, and then some may feel like, gosh, I'm not really sure where I might fit in here. So we encourage you to have conversations with us about that from an admissions perspective. And of course, the best thing to do is come on and visit us, talk with our students, sit in on one of our classes, maybe have a chat with one of our faculty members as well. And
it's important, I think, to underscore, Joanne, why that is the case. These focus areas are not sort of optional things. It's not like you can just say, none of these really speak to me. I'll just do a couple of other things and do a general management curriculum. What is great about this model is that we have a diverse class, with along many dimensions, but people who are in healthcare, want to lead in healthcare, have a critical mass of classmates who are equally passionate about that sector. And those who are really interested in the nexus of finance and society, and how to use finance to build a good society, will be surrounded by others who share that same passion. And it can be lonely sometimes being the person who's trying to drive sustainability in an organization or in a community. And so having a critical mass of people who share that passion and can share lessons and advice is incredibly important. And so, we're not doing this because we don't want people who might not fit into this, but we're doing this because we know it is so important to build these communities within the larger community. Agreed.
The last sort of piece of this that I think is pretty unique to the MBA for Executives at Yale SOM is the self-directed study. And I'm sorry, David, but you are the next slide, front and center. So talk a little bit about what this means for students, and we can certainly answer questions if you have them about how do I go about finding an area that I really want to dive a little bit deeper into. And there's very specific pictures up here. We've got Kyle Jensen, who's our Associate Dean for the Entrepreneurship Program here at the School of Management. There's a picture of a bunch of students outside of the Yale Art Gallery because we offer this really cool opportunity to think about leadership through art, or the art of leadership. And then there's you, and I think you're teaching a SNOC in this one, a small networked online course. Why is it important for students to have this opportunity, and what do they do?
Yeah, it's a great illustration of how we try to make sure that the Yale ethos is reflected in everything we do, including this program, right? So when you think of Yale, you think of choice and freedom, and we try to bring as much of that into the program through workshops and activities and so on. But at the end of the day, we recognize that our participants are busy executives, many have family obligations, and so they can't spend a ton of time on campus. So how do we give people the opportunity to customize the experience while at the same time being mindful of their time? And self-directed study is one such way. And so, students can take an elective course. Usually these electives are really different from the rest of the curriculum. So you see there up in the upper right-hand corner, Jessica Helfand, who's a lecturer in design, has an appointment also at the School of Art, and she led this course at the Art Gallery, and we leveraged some of the incredible treasures here on the campus. If you've always wanted to build an entrepreneurial venture, or you were perhaps an entrepreneur already, you can work with our entrepreneurship team on taking that to the next level. If 1 week of meeting other students from across the global network wasn't enough, and you'd like to connect with them more and more deeply, SNOC, Small Network Online Courses, another global network offering, might be the way to go, where connecting online, you can take a course with students elsewhere. And so there are a number of different options, including, crafting your own project, what we call an independent study, under the supervision of a faculty member. And so it gives you this opportunity to customize the program, make it valuable for yourself, valuable for your organization, for your employer.
So let's talk a little bit about, you've already mentioned a few things. Leadership development is going to be an important part of any MBA for Executives students' journey through the program. We do this in both formal and informal ways through a lot of sort of 360 insight from your peers. We actually have tools that you'll use inside of our programs, as well as some opportunity for coaching, both peer-to-peer coaching, faculty to student coaching. But I'd say it's baked into our curriculum in almost everything we do. Would you agree?
Completely. Yeah. And the two most important skills that we teach in this space is how to give feedback and receive feedback.
Absolutely.
And we do that very early on. The first course you'll take is called, excuse me, Managing Groups and Teams, and it's about how do you put together functional teams. And in the end, teams that are effective and are based on trust will require people to give each other feedback honestly and to receive feedback honestly. And that then sets the tone for the entire program and gets reinforced by specific courses, exercises, assessments, and coaching.
And we talked a lot about this already, so we'll just quickly mention that Friday Across Campus is a real thing, and it's our programs team who works incredibly hard to put these opportunities in front of you to feel like a member of the Yale community, whether it's attending a hockey game over at the Whale, which is just across the street from the School of Management, learning how the bells are rung in Harkness Tower, or maybe going to a tailgate game, or tailgate party rather, in advance of the Harvard-Yale game. These are opportunities that we offer you that are social, that are fun, and allow you to absolutely feel like a member of the Yale community. On Saturdays, if you can stick around, we're hopeful that you'll take advantage of these amazing workshops that we have to offer you. It'll extend your day a little bit, but I think it's totally worth doing. We're bringing in experts from not only the School of Management, but all over Yale. And I think it probably comes as no surprise that both Zoe's workshop on career development, negotiation, and Grace's workshop on executive voice and presence. This is a woman who's teaching Oscar-winning actors, playwrights, directors, and comes over here and talks to our students about their own executive voice and presence. So an opportunity to bring in the very experts that are teaching people who do this sort of stuff for a living and infuse that into the MBA for Executives curriculum, I think is a really unique feature of our program as well.
Completely.
Excellent.
Agree.
I think it's worth spending a minute to talk about the extended classroom, because when we talked about sort of how students get here and travel, sometimes it's just simply not possible. And a question we often get in admissions is, what if I can't? What if I'm not able to make it? What if I have a wedding? What if the weather is inclement? And that happens all the time here in the Northeast. Talk about what that means from a faculty perspective and how our students have taken advantage of the fact that we're offering the opportunity to sort of beam in and still be part of the course that weekend.
Yeah, so we did not want to make this program an online or a hybrid program. We cherish bringing people together here on the Yale campus in this incredible building. But this building also it's a very intelligent building. It has a lot of technology built in. We're coming to you from a classroom leveraging that same technology. And so we said, look, a lot of our students or a lot of our participants are seasoned executives. They're familiar with video conferencing tools. They've all participated in meetings remotely. Let's enable them on occasion, and on occasion means no more than every other class weekend, to connect remotely. And so, if you are in a place from where it takes, half a day to get to New Haven, you like everything you've heard so far, but you're just a little bit intimidated by the distance, that, weather can sometimes get in the way, don't worry. As long as you have a strong internet connection and a webcam, we can beam you into the classroom, as you see right there. Faculty are really comfortable with involving students in those conversations. And you still need to attend live, you still need to take notes, you could still be cold called, but you can sit in your home or in your office as long as it's a quiet place with a solid internet connection rather than being here on campus.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, we've sort of run out of time, and the only reason we can't extend this is because there's a class in our space in just a few minutes here, and we're probably not going to be able to get to a lot of questions. But we will go ahead and take the one that I can see here that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds. And if you do have questions after you leave us today, you are welcome, of course, to email us at emba.admissions@yale.edu. And I think the question that I think is worth revisiting is, does the program offer some opportunity, some flexibility to take courses outside of SOM, outside of this curriculum, and at other schools at Yale? And we've talked so much and emphasized so much about the resources and the awesomeness of Yale. We'd love to offer you that opportunity as much as we can, but...
No, we can. So the simple answer is yes. If you can fit it in,
right? Exactly.
Right? So if you have the kind of flexible schedule where you can come, Monday and Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning to take a class here or to take a class in the history department, by all means, absolutely, right? Because you're first and foremost Yale students. Most of our MBA for Executives participants don't have that flexibility, and so that's why we work with, workshops and extended classrooms and other things and online courses and SNOCs to bring that to them. But if you have the flexibility and you can be here, dive right in. And that, by the way, is not just true for courses, that's true for collections, galleries, libraries, labs. you want to go 3D print with the engineering students, go right ahead. All of those resources are available to students.
The rights and privileges of being a Yale student absolutely extend to the MBA for Executives program. I'm sorry we weren't able to answer more questions. On the other hand, we have a number of webinars that we've recorded and put on our website. We've done webinars about specifically admissions, FAQs, the healthcare area of focus, the Commonwealth Fund. So I do encourage you to hop on our website, check out those other recordings, and hopefully they will be able to answer your questions about admissions. The best way to get your questions answered is, of course, to come and visit with us. We have one final Saturday information session on November 10th. If you're not already signed up for that, we'd love to see you here. You'll have an opportunity to kind of get a little bit of this information session, hear from and meet our admissions staff, hear from and meet our program staff, and of course, interact with the students and faculty. They are the experts. They're the ones you really want to get that information from. What's it like to be here? What's that experience like on a bi-weekly basis? So on the other hand, don't hesitate to reach out to us, emba.admissions@yale.edu. We look forward to seeing you in person, and we'll remind you just finally that our first round deadline is November 13th, which is just about 2 weeks from now. We look forward to seeing those of you that are ready to submit your application. We look forward to reading and seeing your applications for that round 1 deadline. If not, don't worry, round 2 and round 3 are right around the corner for the class of 2021. David, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Thank you all at home or from your offices for checking us out today. And again, happy to answer any questions. Stay in touch, and best of luck to everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you.